This is the Energy Outlook. So our next conversation we move quickly is a very important one. And we're discussing boosting Nigeria's energy supply, challenges and opportunities, especially in the area of implementing mini-grids. Just recently, the IFC signed an agreement with 5 energy companies in Nigeria. And this partnership, of course, is a $70 million partnership with the International Finance Corporation. And this marks a very major milestone in expanding electricity access to undeserved communities. Nigeria currently, according to the numbers, have about 86 million people who lack access to energy. And there are many off-grid communities that need to be powered with electricity. How do we connect to the off-grid communities? We understand mini-grids are one of the avenues we can achieve that. So my guest today is one of these 5 companies that have gone into an agreement with the International Finance Corporation to, of course, boost electricity supply to many undeserved communities. I'm happy to have him on the program as we discuss, very important issues around and the challenges of implementing mini-grids for communities and, of course, boosting the energy supply of Nigeria. My guest is Mr. Olusegun Odunaiya, CEO, Haven Hill Synergy Limited. Welcome to the program, sir. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, Wisdom. Good evening. Thank you for having me here.
Good evening. Such a
And
pleasure to
good
have
evening
you.
to our listeners.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for making out the time. And it's a good time to say congratulations on this deal or agreement with the IFC. Tell us really about it. How did this happen and what are some of the details maybe we've not heard on the media already? If you could just walk us through what you have gone into agreement with the IFC.
Okay, thank you once again. As you are aware, it started, I think, some 5, 6, 7 years ago when, the federal government of Nigeria started looking at, developing distributed, renewable energy solutions across Nigeria, especially, from our off-grid rural community perspective. And that led to the World Bank funded Nigeria Electrification Project, which is coming to an end. And then following that, you have the DS program, which is the Distributed Access for Renewable Energy Scale-up. It's a $750 million, program funded by the World Bank and some, development finance institution. Having said that, the IFC funding is a $200 million packet that is on the backbone of this World Bank funding for renewable energy scale-up in Nigeria. And a component of that program is targeted at electrifying off-grid rural communities that are not connected to the national grid. And specifically, that one of those components is a performance-based component, meaning that this funding will not just be given, or this subsidy will not just be given to developers, like that. You must have built those projects and operated those projects for a specific period of time before you get that subsidy from the government. And so the funding that IFC is putting in place is to catalyze the markets. If we want to have 10,000 mini grids over the next couple of years, there must be significant investment in this space. And so I think IFC in their own wisdom, began, looking for companies who have the capacity, the technical, and what you have me to be able to deploy this project, to be able to, not just only build this project, but, sustain this project, serve these communities. And so we found ourselves, of course, over the years, we've been growing the company, improving our skills, our technical ability, and all those things like that. And so we're one of the organizations that, IFC started looking at, their project pipeline. And then we got to that point that we believe that, we're at that point that we need to scale. I think in 2021, we did our first scale from, we moved from 1 mini grid to 30 mini grids. And so now with this funding, we're able to move from, 30 mini grids to close to 100 mini grids over the next 18 months.
Okay, so I want you to tell us a little more about Haven Hill. You've said you have 30 mini grids in your portfolio. I mean, you've been in this sector for quite a while. I know, and I follow the work you've been doing. But for just for the sake of our viewers, tell us briefly about the company, what you've been doing, and if you also want to tell us more about those 30 mini grids you already have in your portfolio, where are they really, and just give us insight to how that has been working for you.
Yeah, thank you. So, every here we are a clean tech utility company. Um, you can define us like a disco and a genco together. So we use solar energy to generate clean, safe, cost-effective, and sustainable electricity, in rural and urban Nigeria. And what do we do in rural communities? We identify commercially viable off-grid rural communities. These are communities that have never been connected to the national grid, communities that have never used electricity before, in terms of, sustainable electricity. Either they use either petrol or diesel generator to power their operations. When we find these communities, we then design our solution. We create our own distribution infrastructure. We set up the generation asset and also ensure that every customer, unlike in the urban area that you still have customers that are being billed what you call estimated billing. Every customer in our mini grid site have, smart prepaid electricity meters. And so we do all that to ensure that people in that rural community have, access to electricity in a sustainable manner. And that's what we do in the rural community. In the urban area, we help commercial and industrial customers. People rely on electricity to conduct their businesses, from manufacturing to schools to healthcare facilities, name it, whatever sector that they belong to. As long as they require electricity, we're coming to help them diversify their energy mix, bring in a sustainable solution and reduce their costs. Because as you know today, if you're going to generate power from a diesel generator, which a lot of Nigerians rely on, is quite expensive. And so we've had significant progress. In the rural communities, I mentioned that, we scaled from 4 mini grids in 2021 to 30. Now we operate close to 40 mini grids. Our mini grids we have in Oyo State, we have in Kwara State, we have mini grids in Enugu, we have in Kogi, we have in Osun, and they range from our biggest mini grid today, is 600 kilowatts, and then the smallest is 16 kilowatts, serving over 15,000 unique customers. And our
Wow.
projects across our rural communities serve close to 80,000, Nigerians, on a daily basis. In the urban area, we, like I mentioned, helping commercial and industrial customers. For example, in Ibadan, we have a project on the rooftop of Fan Milk. Fan Milk is one of the, if not the biggest dairy producer in Nigeria. We have a 1 megawatt on their rooftop powering, their manufacturing facility. In Kano, for example, we also have another 1 megawatt on the rooftop of Adobe Mall. So we find ourselves playing both, in the rural side of
So
things and also
if
on
I
the
will
urban
come
side
in,
of things.
if I will come in here now, which brings, I like that you've given us a breakdown of all of this. It gives my next question. Uh, a mini grids, are they working for us? Looking at the costs to finance one mini grid project in any of these communities, are they working for us? And if we must close the energy access gap in underserved or rural areas, uh, if you compare this to solar home systems, are mini grids the way to go? Would that be what you say? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you, Wisdom. Yes, mini grids are the way to go where, it is going to work. I think the mistake that has happened over time is that people deploy mini grids where you're supposed to deploy solar home systems. Of course, there are areas where you require solar home systems, and there are areas where you require mini grids. It will interest you to know that there are communities, in fact, there are local governments in this country that don't have access to electricity, and these are places whereby if you put 2-3 megawatt of, mini grid, it won't even be enough to serve them. So how do you serve such communities with solar home systems? So mini grids work where you've done proper, demand studies, you've done your assessments, you've done proper stakeholder engagement and management. Mini grids actually work. Yes, of course, the mini grid regulation of, is it 2017, which has been described as one of the best, mini
Yes,
grid regulation in Africa,
yes.
enables and empowers, mini grid developers to go into, unserved or underserved rural communities or even peri-urban communities or even urban communities, because on the other side of, isolated mini grids is what you have the interconnected mini grids that, that reaches out to areas where the discos are not properly serving, or where, the people who are the last mile at the end of their network. So mini grids work. Yes, over the years, you would see whereby, when the disco tariff in Nigeria, the general tariff has been maybe below 100 naira, and you hear that, mini grid developers, are charging, above 100 naira, as the case may be. But you still understand that even as at the current tariff today in Nigeria, the band, which is 208 naira, is still subsidized. The true cost of electricity in Nigeria is over 300 naira. But because there's one form of government subsidy or the other, people are paying, 208 naira, or even band B, band C that are paying, below 70 naira. So the regulation allows, mini grid developers to charge a cost-reflective tariff, meaning that if you decide to charge 10 naira per kilowatt hour of electricity, as long as that 10 naira per kilowatt hour is a reflection of your tariff, of your cost rather, and the community agrees to pay that 10 naira, then it has good to go. It's like a willing buyer, willing seller approach. And when you look at it, we did an analysis a couple of years ago where we calculated how much it would cost the distribution company to, create a distribution infrastructure from their
Okay.
closest, distribution to a rural community. We found out that it will cost over maybe 100 to 200 million naira. That was around 5 years ago. And the revenues that will come out from that community may not repay that investment in 20 years. So why does it now make sense for the disco to, or for the government to try to run, distribution infrastructure
Okay.
several
So
hundreds of
so
kilometers across,
so you're telling me now that mini grids work, and they're,
100%.
yes, 100% it works. But from your experience so far, I mean, you've had 30 mini grids already, so I mean, you can speak to this firmly. What were some of the challenges? Because we are looking at the success story now. Maybe we have we have forgotten how we started and how, because I mean, I know some of the mini grids while I was still actively working in the space. Of course, I know some of the challenges to get a mini grid in any community. What were some of your challenges, and what are the challenges you see for the sector itself? And if we now agree that mini grids work, especially for off-grid and underserved communities, where are you seeing the opportunities that we can improve on? I want you to speak to that, please.
Yeah, thank you. So if you go back, and I think it should still have something to do with the sector, if you go back some 5, 7 years ago, when
Yes,
we started seeing, mini grids become, mainstay in our energy generation, there were so
yes.
many issues. Access to finance, at
That
that
was
time there
one
was no
issue.
local
I remember
currency
that issue. Access
financing.
to finance was a
Yeah,
big problem. Do we still have that
exactly,
as a problem till
exactly.
now?
Well, not as it was before,
Not at the
because now
scale.
you now have,
Okay.
yeah, now you now have so many, local currency financing, there are infrastructure funds funding mini grids in Nigeria. The banks are now playing a more active role. Back then, 7 years ago, you have to go and raise a euro or a dollar denominated facility to build mini grids in Nigeria. And by the time you are done building the mini grids, naira has depreciated. You are paying back in dollar, your revenue is in naira. So those are some of the challenges we face. At that time, when we built our first mini grid, there was no mini grid regulation. So when there were uncertainty around, what will it look like 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line. Now there's a mini grid regulation. You know what would happen if a disco expands into the community where you operate. Of course, the infrastructural challenges, poor road networks, when you move from one state in Nigeria to another state in Nigeria, you tend to see disparity in terms of regulation and what is obtainable, educational level of the people you are dealing with, because when people don't understand, what you are trying to do, and some of them, because some politicians have promised them will give you electricity over the years, and then when you get there, they think you are coming, because why would somebody leave Abuja and says he wants to give me electricity in a rural community in Kogi State or in Niger State? They can't seem to understand that. So those are some of the challenges we face. Of course, the technical know-how. 7, 8 years ago, there were fewer solar engineers in the country. Now there are so many trainees, NAPTIN, GIZ. There are so many renewable energy programs in the country that are now training, engineers, training people on how, to operate, to install, and to do
So
all
you are
those things
saying
like
the
that.
challenge
And
on skill and talent is easy now. You can easily get those talent within the space. Is that no longer a challenge?
it's still a challenge, but of course, unlike, for example, I was having a conversation this morning, and I said to them, it, the people or the oil and gas company, they don't need to do anything. So many universities in Nigeria are training people for, marine engineering, for this, for that. I think there's only one university in Nigeria that has solar energy as a course, so it's not like it's better, but it's not like we
We are
are
not
the
just
final
where we
bus
used
stop,
to
but
be those years back.
exactly. We've seen significant improvements, and now there are, of course, the basic knowledge is electrical engineering, having, and so when you have a lot of people, a lot of universities or polytechnics, doing electrical engineering courses, but you then need to step that down, to specifically to renewable energy, to solar, and all the dynamics around, what we do in
So
that field.
you're saying there are challenges, but we're not where we used to be 5, 6, 10 years ago. There has been progress significantly.
Yes, we've significantly moved. Maybe 5 years ago or 7 years ago, you had maybe less than 10 companies. Today, you have over 50 companies. There are now training institutes, across the north and south of the country. There are now curriculums for solar energy
Yes.
trainings that are now certified. With the last speaker mentioned, Koren, NEMSA, there are so many things that are now being done that we didn't have before. Now there are standards, and we can only, improve from there. And then, over the next 5, 10 years, you would have seen significant difference, now within the sector.
So you're saying that mini grids will significantly play a key role in our energy transition or the broader energy transition for Nigeria, even for Africa as we're looking at it. Because, I mean, from what you have shared now, it means it is working and it will work for many communities. So where are the opportunities you see now going forward that we must begin to work towards to improve how this will work for us to even connect more Nigerians. 86 million Nigerians still lack access to energy. And I don't know if you were at Dar es Salaam at the Africa Energy Summit for Mission 300. You can see the conversation at the summit will tell you that there's still more issues that we need to solve on this. Where do you see opportunities and how we can work towards it?
Yeah, thank you, Wisdom. To be honest with you, mini grid is a solution, is a future. We've seen it and we are not going back. There are so many communities that we have today that if we take away our services from those communities, like we are taking them back to the dark age, they can't even imagine how they lived, 10, 20, 30 years before without electricity, and there are so many, over hundreds of those communities spread across this country, by so many developers, electrifying these communities, and the opportunities are huge. We're talking about isolated, communities are not connected to the national grid. There's so much opportunity in the interconnected mini grid space, and you are beginning to see conversations, because ask yourself, there are so many places in this country that are still experiencing less than 12 hours of supply every day. Those places, if in fact, the best way to look at it is that where are our major power stations in the country? When you take the dams, the hydro power stations, they're in the northern part of the country. Some of those powers are transported to the south and to the west of the country. And look at, we've had 2 grid collapses this year alone, and that's because there's a lot of instability, in the I'm not in the electricity infrastructure. So mini grids, decentralized energy solution is a future where we're able to generate power in a particular location to serve people in that location. That's what mini grid is. You can use mini grid for so many applications. You can use it for healthcare. You can use it for agriculture. You can use it for commercial and industrial solutions. You can use it for anything. So mini grid is not only tied to rural communities. As long as it's a solution that is decentralized, and you are using it for a particular place to serve, a particular set of customers. And NEC expects, mini grid to be at up to 1 megawatt. Now there are conversations currently ongoing to increase that threshold, to 5 megawatts. If you take some certain countries in Africa, you can go up to 50 megahertz without even getting a regulation. Here you can't get a you must get a regulation even if you are doing, sorry, you must get a permit or license if you are doing above 1 megahertz. And now that you're beginning to see a lot of 1 megahertz projects, it's going to create administrative bottleneck to begin to go back to next. So there are a lot of things being done in that area to push that threshold from 1 megahertz to 5 megahertz. So there are opportunities in for investors who are coming into the space. There are opportunities for original equipment
Okay, so
manufacturers. There are opportunities for developers as well to to scale their work within this sector.
so with the Nigeria Electricity Act, we know that different states now are creating their market. So far, NEC has published that 10 states have been able to establish, their policies, and those regulatory transfers are happening, and very soon there will be 100% transfer to these states. But my argument always has been that even before now, these states, they are able to leverage off-grid solutions like mini-grid to power the off-grid community, but they were not doing it. So do you think anything will be different now? Players like yourself, developers like yourself, are you already being engaged? Are there roles you see playing when we decentralize the market to the states?
Thanks to Wisdom, you must understand that it's not the government's job to create infrastructure. The government job is actually to put the policies, the frameworks in place so that private entities, investors, developers can come into that space and thrive. So there's actually no way, government or state government would have invested their own money in mini grids or in energizing their rural communities. There are so many challenges around that space. But what is happening now is that as these states begin to take charge of their own electricity market, they're able to localize the problem and then also localize the solution. And of course, we're already having conversations with some states, because it's then easy to manage than when everything is being managed centrally from them. For example, you look at some discos, their operations cut across 3, 4, 5, 6 states. But now they have to be dealing with the state. So when the state government looks at maybe a particular region and sees that the disco is not properly set, they can tell the disco, you know what, we need you to franchise this area, to us so that we can give this area to, maybe certain developers to then do generation, do distribution, and properly serve. So we see
Okay.
that, over the next couple of years,
Yes,
we should
we'll
have
see things
better,
change. Fantastic.
electricity at the state level.
Mr. Alu, before I let you go, so your funding from IFC, quickly, where are you channeling this funding to? What should we see? What expectations we should see in the next couple of months and years from Haven Hills?
Yeah, thank you. So the funding from IFC is to help us scale. Like I mentioned, we intend to build a couple of mini grids over the next 12 to 18 months, and that connecting several thousands of customers, who have never had access to electricity. The goal is that over the next 3 to 5 years, we want to be serving at least 1 million unique customers, meaning that we are connecting 1 million Nigerians who have never had access, to electricity. Of course, the funding will also help us increase, our footprints, not just in the rural community, but also, a new interconnected mini grids project, developing the technical capacity of our teams to be, because it's not just about building this project, it's
All
also
right.
building projects that are sustainable.
Sustainable.
And, we can ensure that we have projects,
Thank
operating
you.
over the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Thank you so much. Mr. Olusegun Odunaiya is the CEO of Haven Hills Energy Limited, and we've been discussing how we can boost energy supply for Nigeria, challenges and opportunities, and he's been able to give us some good insight. Mr. Olusegun, thank you so much for your time. We'll follow the work, and we'll come back. I'm sure we can have you back sometime in the future to look at the progress you've made.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the work you are doing with Energy Outlook.
Thank you.